and welcome to Finding Serenity. I'm JD, and I'm here with my good friend Rhonda. And tonight we're going to talk about what the Serenity Prayer has to do with finding serenity. And I guess first off, did you grow up praying? Like did you pray before you got into recovery?
Well, I would say kind of. Like I felt spiritual when I
Yeah.
was in nature. I felt
Uh huh.
spiritual. And then when I was a child growing up, I'm Jewish. We went to Friday night services every Friday night, and I felt very connected to God when I was a child. But then when I was in graduate school, I felt like I lost interest in religion because I thought religion and spirituality were the same thing. And
Right.
then I got wise and I got connected to spirituality, and now I pray all the time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that just even being out in nature, like I didn't grow up religious and thought prayer was stupid. And and I thought it was just something you had to do on your knees with your hands folded, close your eyes and you know. But luckily I tell people how dumb I thought it was, and instead of them telling me you're right or you'll never change if you don't pray, they kind of said, there's a whole bunch of other ways besides getting on your knees and praying. Um, Journaling. There's a 12-step program that completely takes any argument away. And it says you could simply view prayer as talking in a meeting and meditation is listening. And it's like, well, that kind of pops a bunch of holes in a lot of my stupid arguments. But so, yeah, I just want to make sure that people listening, like if you don't bristle at the word prayer, you know,
Yeah.
and that we can find that different ways to pray. And it'd be really hard to argue with the wisdom of the serenity prayer. You could even just say the serenity statement, and you don't have to say God. There's a million ways to work around it if you're, I think, challenged by words like God or words like prayer. You know,
Those words are very triggering for many,
yeah,
many people.
for a
Yeah.
lot of people, and and so we want serenity. And the prayer goes like, I think the way I was taught is God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So my question to you, Rhonda, is like, what can't you change? What do you know you cannot change?
Well, that's a hard question. Well, I think that, one of the things um, that I've come to reckon with is my self will because I thought I could change everything. And I don't think that's true anymore, and I think that surrendering and letting go has been, has really helped me get to a place of serenity. And, before I was in Al Anon, I really didn't know what serenity was. And I did not know, I mean, I would hear about the serenity prayer here and there, and I was like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. And I wasn't that interested in it, because I didn't know what serenity felt like. I didn't know about prayer. I didn't know about spirituality. And so it wasn't in my life.
Hmm. Yeah. Things I think that I'm pretty certain of that I know I cannot change. Uh, the past, that I have the disease of addiction and other people. I don't think there's a way to change those things for me. And
Those are
so
excellent. Those are good. Yes, I like all that. I agree with all that.
when I got into recovery, I thought I could change other people while thinking I was incapable of change. you know, I thought my past would just continue to haunt me. Um, I didn't see possibility. um, And then what are the things you think you can change?
What are the things that I can change? Well, I can change my attitude.
Right?
That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And
Not so
I
easy.
it's not that easy, but and I can change when I get triggered. I can return to a place of serenity. I've learned a lot of tools in the program, and I can recognize when I'm triggered. I can recognize when I'm trying to control somebody or control a situation that's outside of myself, and
Your
and
responses and some of your
yeah,
reactivity, you can
yeah,
change that.
reaction. Yeah.
Yeah. And
What about
yeah, I
you?
always kind of say my attitude and also where my butt is. And I didn't think that was possible either.
Where
Um,
your butt is? What do you?
yeah, like, yeah, like I go to treatment and I don't want to be in groups, so I skip it. I am not like physically disabled. I'm not so depressed I can't get out of bed. So it was really like, of all the things in recovery, there's about, I think about over 72 billion I heard that I dismissed or thought were completely stupid. And near the top was mood follows action. I'm too depressed to go to group. I'm too this to that. I'm too this to that. What's the point of saying a prayer if I don't believe in it? What's the point of this? What's the point of that? You know, and then someone says you might be in some self pity. I'm like, go to hell. Um, but so yeah, I can change my attitude, my reactions, and where I am. I think, and then what or who is the wisdom? What's the difference between what I can't change and can to you?
That's a good question. The wisdom to know the difference. I don't know. I think I have to defer to you about this.
Wow. As the expert, fucking, seriously, I have like a 94 IQ, all sorts of things that would suggest I'm not an expert. Um, is um, the difference is me, and for most of my problems, they are about the things I identified I can't change. Other people, the past, and instead of working on my attitude, I'm, intellectually able to say I can't change other people, but my behavior would suggest sometimes I think I can, and I just think I love the simple wisdom of it, and I think it really helps because a lot of people say this prayer multiple times a day, and
I
it's
do. I say it all day long.
the most, whatever you call it, bang for the buck that I would get out of it is when I stop and actually say, wait a minute, what can I change? I'm not in charge at work. All right. So right then I know I'm fighting reality if I'm trying to convince somebody of something. I can't change someone's motivation necessarily. I can't change how other people have started their day. What can I change? I could put a smile on my face. I could say a prayer, God, please take this. I could, take a walk. There's a lot of things I can do. Um, and so, and reminding myself the wisdom is really, it's me. It's not good to make assumptions, but a good one to make is nobody else is going to change. And that's not meant to be superiority or dismissive of the possibility, but just assume everyone is going to keep acting and doing the way they do things and acting the way they are. Um, and typically, what will happen is it'll be my response. And at times, I used to think, oh, wow, they finally changed. Now they're acting right. That's why I'm serene. And it's like wiser people will tell me, like, I don't think so, JD. Your reactions, your attitude, your perspective is what's changed, right? And it's hard to come off of, right? Um, Al Anon's filled with people who say this, and it's like, luckily, some of them can laugh, and some of them say it with a straight face. Is if they just do what I want, we'd all be okay. And then deny that they have control issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a terrible part of our disease.
Right. You know, um, and so to put it in action, what you say it every day. Now, do you say it preemptively? Do you say it when you're stirred up? Do you just say it at a certain time? Do you have a reminder on your phone? Like, talk about how you use this prayer.
Well, sometimes it's almost like a habit. I just say it sometimes.
Hmm.
I like it, but I think also it's just long enough that it creates a nice pause.
Yeah. What did you tell me your acronym for pause is? Pause
Yeah,
action until spirit enters.
yeah, pause action until spirit enters.
Right. And so this prayer, like you're saying, is 4 seconds, 3 seconds, and that can be enough to get out of fight or flight, engage the front of your brain, and be like, wait a minute. I'm upset about something I cannot change. Wait a minute. I'm complaining about something I probably could change. I just don't want to. Wait a minute. This is hard to change. I'm not sure if I can or can't. Should I call somebody? So, like, engaging that pause is a good reason to pray, right? To pray.
Yeah, and it connects you to spirit. Like
Yeah.
like it you can, because sometimes it's easy to be disconnected from spirit, but that little prayer is just a little reminder that spirit is there.
There. And it's available within 2 or 3 seconds.
2 or 3 seconds.
Right. Right.
That's all it takes really to calm down too, is just 2 to 3 seconds. I mean, not always. When sometimes you get really triggered and you need more than that, but it's enough to like control your reaction.
Yeah. What do you have? I mean, because it's like, I don't want to get into all the dialectical behavior therapy. Do you use that in your practice? Do you ever?
I don't do any therapy. I only do evaluations.
So it's like a set of skills, right? Um, about a lot of things. But, I'm not trained in it. But there's a bunch of tools. Like, the 3 A's in Al Anon, those are also in DBT. Um,
Nice.
yeah. And but the whole dialectic idea, this is again rather a layperson without the trainings, just some knowledge of it. This idea of dialectics is like it's not a Venn diagram, but it's like the synthesis of opposites, right? And it can be very frustrating in recovery for me, as I will do what I'm supposed to do, go to a sponsor or a trusted friend and be like, this is going on. What should I do? And that's the serenity prayer in action. I'm trying to get help, right? And they'll be like, call someone, ask them how they're doing, try to help somebody. Go to a meeting, pick up your pen and journal. Like action, action, action. And then I'll call them the next night with the same fucking problem. And they'll be like, let it sit for a while, meditate on it. I'm like, which one is it? So, you know, what do I accept? What do I change? And I just think most people are wired to kind of see things black and white. There's a lot of really beautiful statements in Al Anon and, all over. And one of them is, I will no longer tolerate or accept unacceptable behavior. And I think people hear that and think it's as simple as telling someone, hey, your behavior is unacceptable, stop
Yeah.
it. And that is not what that thing means. It's 5-word phrase or sentence that takes probably a lifetime of work, and there's never any mastery of it. Perhaps I could look at my unacceptable behavior first, second, third, fourth, and then eventually have some halfway decent boundaries. Um,
I
I got
think
deeper issues that allow me to accept unacceptable behavior I'm not even aware of.
that with the disease of addiction, if you grow up around the disease of addiction, which is a lot of chaos and unpredictable behavior, that what happens with people is that they become very rigid and need a lot of order. and they need a lot of black and white because they're living in gray and unpredictability, and it's unbearable. And so um, that they become very, very rigid in their thinking. And that's why when you come to Al-Anon, you know that you learn that there's other ways of thinking, some flexibility in your thinking.
I talk about this all the time, and you just turn me on to something because I think most of us see the world as black and white, but you're right. Growing up around or in active addiction, in relationships with unhealthy people or even healthy people, it is gray and murky, while also black and white thinking and rigidity is awful. So I need structure, but how do I not turn that into rigidity? You
Yeah.
know, and I need to look at. And I think I might have told you this, and this woman was sharing, and I had my little judgments, but my ears perked up when she's like, "Well, I either go to A or Z," and I was like, "I do that. I say a prayer every day to remove my black and white and all or nothing thinking." And she's like, "Well, I forget that there's B through Y. There's 24 other letters, right?" But yeah, unpredictability scary, so black and white safe. And then it becomes so safe, I suck at relationships. I don't like myself. I'm terrified of everything. I'm miserable,
Right. It
which
prevents
is
you
the
from
healthy
having
gray.
intimacy. Like it creates a barrier between you and the world. Like you can set your household up with all these rigid rules and the way you think about the world in a very rigid way, and you're going to be living alone.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think too, again, recovery's filled with all sorts of, or any sort of wisdom about a journey, or they say all the time, trust the process. Um, the more I'm able to tell myself I'm in a process, then the less reactive I get. I'm not stunned that this isn't changing overnight. I'm like, no, it's not supposed to. It's okay. Um, they would say this like, this too shall pass. And I would just be like, fuck you. Is if you're an addict or if you're in any kind of emotional pain, 2 seconds feels like 2 years, 20 minutes feels like a lifetime.
Absolutely.
But it was like starting to see, like, instead of this too shall pass, it didn't resonate with me. But this too is passing. When I'm crying, when I'm screaming, when I'm having fun with people, when I'm at the meeting, when I'm complaining, when I'm sharing my fifth step, it's passing. And then I feel like I've arrived, and someone's like, "Well, the good times pass too," and I'm like, "No," just um, but yeah, like just kind of know that things are changing all the time, and if I'm rigid, like you say, I'm doomed.
Doomed. But I think the Serenity Prayer, um, the way it's formatted, it gives a person balance. It really gives you total flexibility. Like some things you can't change, some things you can change, and it's inspiring to try to change the things that you can. But understanding what those are, like your first question, what things can you not change? Because there's so many things that you cannot change, and people get completely freaked out, triggered by trying to change things that they cannot, which is anything outside of themselves.
Even the most mundane things, the wind in the spring, the stupid construction workers, all that stuff, these little things are, I think they're really good examples of it. And when I got clean, I hated everything. I'm trying to poke holes in it. And I just go call for some reason, I would call my sponsor. I believe it was grace, a God doing for me, a God I didn't believe in, to take my anger and fear and frustration to somebody. And he'd be like, "Well, what's wrong now, JD?" And I'm like, they're talking about dope and booze in the meeting, and it makes me want to drink, And he'd be like, "Yeah, And then they say not to use a specific thing, but you can't control people." And I'm like, "Well, and they're rolling up dollar bills to put in the seventh step tradition. I mean, these are fucking junkies. Don't they know that's triggering me?" And he's like, "No, the trigger is not these people. It's between your ears." And then the next night I call him and I'm like, this meeting's stupid. He's like, are they talking about dope again? Are they talking about booze again? Are they rolling up bills again? I'm like, no, they're talking about their relationship with sugar and their spiritual barometer, how they are in traffic. And I'm dying from dope and booze. You called me an expert earlier on for good reason, right? Fucking dumb dumb. I don't know, right? And I think that that's part of this prayer too. I don't know if we talked about this when we were talking a little bit about denial, that it's a disease of denial, sure, in a lot of ways. And we've talked about some of those, and we will again. But it's also one of ignorance. I don't know. I don't know. Uh, I don't understand. And my rigidity and black and white thinking, I don't want to look at it. I want to change, but I don't want to do the work. I think you and the world, if only, if only, if only, they should, they should, they should. But. And all those things are just setting me up to be miserable and focus on what I can't change, right?
You know, I just I want to just say something about that denial because I was at an assembly this past weekend, and the speaker on Saturday night was talking about she was Al-Anon. Her husband was AA. Anyway, she was talking about the denial and all the lying that goes on in an alcoholic relationship, where he was lying all the time, but she also was lying all the time, about that everything was fine, and that was she gave another acronym for fine. And do you know that one?
I know the one famous one that
Which one
has
do
a
you know?
yeah. It ends in like yeah. I know it.
It's like fucking insane, neurotic, and emotional. You know,
Yeah,
that's a good
yeah.
one. That's a good one because people that use a lot of denial, they, I've used plenty of denial and I still use denial, but when I'm using denial excessively, fucking insane, emotionally neurotic. It's and
And
very
yet I'm sitting there telling people I'm fine, and then I say I'm not a liar. No, you're holding things in. You're not fine, right? And setting ourselves up for disappointment. You know, no, I'm fine. I'm not bothered by it. I'm not bothered by it. Eventually, that is going to come out sideways at best, right?
yeah. And then to say everything is fine when everything is completely upside down in your world and it's not fine. Like it gets in the way, but we can talk about that another time. But the thing about when you are fucking insane and neurotic and emotional, then the serenity prayer, like it's it kind of leads to self-acceptance, right? Because you allow yourself the grace of being completely fucked up and you're asking for help or you're trying to ground yourself.
So that is the tool I hope people, you, me, anyone might listen, can take away. And is to kind of make friends with the reality. I'm new at this. I'm stirred up. I'm human. I don't know a lot of stuff. The way I heard it is fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And I don't know if I've been telling you this, but I every once in a while will work with a client who I think can take it. Who they are. They're neurotic, emotional, fucked up, but they don't say they're fine. They fucking go and act insane. And I tell them, look, you've got a superpower. And they're like, what? I'm fucking insane. I'm this. I'm like, no, 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 no. Neuroticism gets a bad rap. One good definition of it is excessive worry. You have excessive worry. And what you're doing is sharing it all. And the more talking you do sometimes in a safer place, you might start to hear yourself. Like, oh, wow. Wow, I've said that 45 times. I don't need to. Oh, wow. I'm overthinking. Oh, wow. And the people who zip it and either say they're fine or by not talking or recovery bromides and just use buzzwords, they're not going to get better, or it might take them longer to get better. So I like to it's kind of like, could I make friends with this idea? I'm new at this. I'm in a process. Like instead of fighting, that I have brain fog, rumination, irritability, focus on others, external locus of control, be like, that's fucking normal. I've been wired that way by my family. I've been wired that way by my addiction, by my experiences. Could I just be, if not make friends with it, be neutral and know, hey, this is what's going on. People know what the common symptoms of a cold are. So you're not outraged that you have the fucking sniffles and a fever or whatever. If I knew part of healing included irritability, rage, emotional outbursts, overthinking, overreacting, I might be like, wait a minute, I don't like this, but it's kind of normal, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes. Yes. It's a direct result of out of be living in an out of control situation most of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. And the last thing I'd like to say about serenity is I've had to redefine that word, joy, and contentment repeatedly in recovery, you know. Uh, and I also have had to learn it's my responsibility, which is what the serenity prayer to me is all about. Who's responsible for my serenity? JD. And I really just appreciate, one of the great ways to build hope, commitment, possibility is doing something like you talked about. I say the serenity prayer and then reflect, how does this affect my life? It lets spirit enter. It calms me down. It gives me perspective and choices. It's a reminder, and I think that's a really good tool just to reflect on what X, Y, or Z does for me, the positive and the negative. I spent all day trying to focus on something I know I can't change. How that affect your life? Well, I was irritable and trying to fight with somebody. Like, okay, try again tomorrow. It's like ease up.
Grace.
Grace, grace, grace. I want it, so I got to give it
You
to
know,
myself and others.
when I was at that assembly this weekend, we at the end, there's like 100 people there, and everybody formed a circle around the big room, and we're holding hands, and we all recited the Serenity Prayer. And a lot of times, I close my eyes because I really try to focus on spirit. But this time, I just looked at everybody, and we were all saying the Serenity Prayer, and it was pretty powerful. Like it was like it's cool when also when you go to a meeting and everybody says it together, it's amazing. And then when there was that international conference in Albuquerque I had gone to a few years ago, and that was like 1,000 people saying this Serenity Prayer at once, and that was very, very powerful, meaningful.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us and take care.